I'm a program manager on the Azure Resource Manager team. Gaurav is going to join me on stage here in a bit. We both work on ARM templates a lot. Gaurav is our lead PM on the managed applications offer that we have in Azure, and that actually kind of ties together our theme. So the reduce, reuse, recycle, and back to the saving the planet. So we'll talk about how we can actually leverage some of the new features and new techniques we have in ARM templates that allow you to make them a little bit more efficient. So you'll be more efficient, less code, less electrons, less stress on the environment. And so that's how we'll tie that all together. I'll also talk a little bit about debugging templates. I'm going to go into that really quickly. We've got a lot of stuff that we want to show, not a lot of time. So I'll give you some ideas of what I do when I debug templates, and maybe some techniques that you're not aware of. And we'll actually have a quick overview of managed applications, and then a demo as well. So in the reduce stage, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some things not to do when you're working with templates. And then I'll go into the demo and we'll kind of show you the things that you should do instead. But a lot of it is things that you just tend to kind of react to, or things that you'll do when you get started. Some of it is looking at legacy code. And to be fair, if you look back, a year ago, 15 months ago, when we introduced a lot of these functions, there really wasn't any easier way to do some of these things on an ARM template. So a lot of the samples that you'll see, a lot of the, even the samples in the quick starts in the GitHub, they're using old techniques that you don't have to use anymore, that were more verbose. And so even with that, go to quick starts. There's two places you can find it. One is through through Azure.com, one is through the GitHub repo itself. They're both the same thing, but we actually have about 700 samples in there. So if you're looking to do something with a template, go up there and look for somebody who's already done something at least similar to it, if not the exact same thing. Grab that code and start from there. Don't fire up Notepad.exe and start typing in your JSON. Another thing is the automation script in the portal. How many people have seen this feature? Actually, quite a few. Okay, good. So that's another way to do it. You build your resource group. You can go in and you can export it. And I'll give you a couple caveats with that, because I think the expectations are probably not set real well with the name of the option there. So what this will do is it will export that resource group as it looks. And the intent would be then, if something happened to that resource group, that template could put it back. And so it'll put it back the same thing that it found. A lot of people want to take that and they want to make a copy of their resource group. And it won't work as well for that, because there are going to be things in that template that are globally unique, and they can't be shared. You can't have more than one instance of them. There are things in there that will share resources, and you won't be able to share those resources because they're already being used. So if you take the template and you try to deploy another instance, you're likely to have trouble with that. There's also some limitations in what we can actually export. I call it export because it's the name of the REST API that actually generates the script. But you'll see that when you do the automation script, it'll tell you in a little gold bar at the top that says, hey, we could now output these things. So it may not be complete in some cases. So it's a good place to go and get some ideas of what you need to do. It's a good place to get started. It's not going to do the whole thing for you. So just have that expectation in mind when you go to use it. One of the things you can do when you find those things, like the little gold bar that doesn't export, is Resource Explorer in the portal. And there's also a version of this outside of the portal. But what that will do is that will go through and it will do a get on the resources in Azure. And then Azure will return the JSON that it knows about those resources. You can take that JSON, and in a lot of cases you can carry that over into a template, and you can do your deployment there. A couple things to keep in mind with that is that get is returning read properties that can be read. It's returning properties that can be read and written. It's not returning any write properties. And so if you think of a template, you're actually trying to do a write into ARM. And if you don't have those write properties, a lot of times that's going to fail. So think of a VM password as a write-only property. We're not going to return that password in a get, but when you provision a VM, you have to have it. And so as you do that, you'll bring some of the JSON through. You may see some feedback like that when you deploy your template. You may see an error that says, hey, you're missing a password, or you're trying to set an IP address, but that IP address is read-only. So things like that you may run into, but it's also another good source for getting started. Again, the Notepad.exe thing, you could put VI in here as well. But don't just fire up an editor and go start typing JSON. Even if you're going to copy and paste from quick starts, don't just use an editor. There are some tools out there in VS and VS Code. They have extensions that work well with ARM templates, and it will help you. Not a lot of functionality in there, but one of the things that I use probably every day is those extensions will tell you whether or not what you have in a property value is a good ARM expression or not. So if you have an ARM expression you use like resource ID or reference, or you're putting a bunch of them together, it's going to tell you, do you have your quotes in the right place? Do you have the right number of arguments? Do you have the right number of parentheses, opening and closing? That stuff can drive you nuts if you try to deploy it and try to figure that out. So VS Code will tell you things like that. VS will tell you things like that. Go ahead and use those and take advantage of them. The next one, so using the wrong template approach, and this kind of goes back to that legacy code comment. The analogy I give is if you want to multiply two numbers, you could do that in a loop, and you could add those numbers up, and you essentially have the product of the two factors. Or you could just type x times y, and one is much simpler to do than the other. Again, go back a year ago, you had to do things in a loop in the ARM templates. Now you have the ability to do x times y, so look for those functions. How do you know those functions are available? The way that I look at it is if you start to think about, I'm doing something in code, and it's harder than it should be, then take a step back and go see if there's another way to solve the problem. There's a lot of things, and I'll show some of them today, that can really make that a lot easier to do. So go look for those, and if you don't find them, send me email, because one of the things I say is, if you don't send us email or you don't tell us what you're frustrated with, we're just going to continue to make things to frustrate you. So you need to give us that feedback so that we can go and make those things better. Over parameterization, this is also a little bit of a legacy thing, but I'll see a lot of cases where there are templates with a lot of parameters, and the parameters might be asking for things like the network interface name, which in most cases the user does not care about that. You don't want the user to specify that. If they get it wrong, your template's going to fail. So pick things that are going to change from one environment to the next, or one deployment to the next. Those are good candidates for parameters. Things that affect cost, like the VM size. That's another good option. And in the cases where you do have parameters, try to put default values in for them, because it not only makes it much easier for you to use when you go through your dev test lifecycle, it makes it easier for customers and users to deploy that as well. Next one, providers API versions. So here's a quiz. So how many people think that this function will return the oldest API version? Nobody. Okay, how many think it returns the newest API version? How many people have no idea what this returns? You people are right. This function is not deterministic. I think when we originally made it, that was the intent. We probably did not fulfill that as well as we could have. And so what happens is when you retrieve this API version, and this kind of ties into the next one, when you're using API versions in ARM, that's telling ARM what shape of the object do you want to work with? What version of the resource provider do you want to work with? So the properties that are going to be read and write from that object are going to change from version to version. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And when it happens, if you haven't specified literally what API version you want to work with, then your code's going to fail. And we've actually had cases of this in the Azure Marketplace where something changed. People were using this function to return the API version, and it broke all of those templates, and we had to go and fix them. So I don't know that we'll do a very good job of actually fixing that, but I just generally tell people just don't use it, because when you're coding, that version is very important to you, whether it's a client library or it's a service in ARM. That version is very important to the shape of the requests that you're making, so use the literal API version. I'll also go so far as to say don't use variables for API version in templates. In addition to all those other things, the other thing that you won't get when you do that is the tooling can't help you. So the API version is part of the shape of the schema for a particular resource, and when you pull that out and make that not a literal value but a variable, then schema validation can't be done on that resource. And so again, it's just you're losing some of the flexibility you have there. So there's not really many advantages to using it. There are some disadvantages to not doing it, so that's why I put it on the list. Mixing declarative and imperative. So I get this question a lot. I've actually got a couple times this week. I like declarative. I like templates. I put something in my template. I deploy it. Somebody goes to the portal and changes something. How do we get that change back into my template? Unfortunately, today there really isn't a good way to do that. And so think of the declarative and imperative approach as this is a model that you're using. This is kind of a mindset, and you have to commit to it. You can't do some things declaratively and some things imperatively. That's going to cause you problems. Neither is necessarily better than the other, but when you start to mix them, that's where you're going to run into trouble. So think of that from the start of if you're going to use templates, you have to start to think about how are things going to be changed through those templates rather than the other places that it could be changed. Secrets in source code. Have you guys used Key Vault references in templates? Okay, a few. So obviously you don't want to put secrets in source code. We've known that since kindergarten. ARM templates have a way to reference things out of a Key Vault, and you can get those into your template and into your deployment without them ever being exposed in any sort of logs or anything else. So I'll show you a couple examples of that. Another technique that you can use is if say you need a service principal to do some actions within your solution, you can use what we call a managed service identity. That will actually, the service identity is provisioned with the resource. It has the lifetime of the resource. The secret is never exposed from that, and there are ways that you can actually go and use that resource, like in a VM, for example, to do things within the subscription. So there's another way to work without secrets. And then the last thing on here, there are a couple of functions in ARM. If you've done some templates, you're probably aware, but if you need a storage account key, you can use the list keys function, and that will pull it out. You don't need to pass it into the template. List account SAS is a new one that does the same thing with a SAS token on a blob container. And then there is the list star, which is really just a reminder of anything that is a provider operation within the ARM REST API, and it starts with list. That can be supported in an ARM template, provided it doesn't require a payload. And a lot of them don't. You don't need a request body to go with that. So even though it may not be documented, it's still supported and you can still use it. Using the wrong function. This doesn't happen, I don't see this as much anymore, but I will say that concat is probably the most overused function within an ARM template because it can kind of do everything. It's I guess the Swiss Army knife of functions. But one of the things that doesn't do for you is a lot of times you'll see concat used for a resource ID. It works fine for simple resource IDs, but it also requires you to understand the format of a resource ID. I know as I stand here right now, I know that there's a provider's path in a resource ID. I couldn't tell you where it goes because if I ever want to do a resource ID, I use the resource ID function. So as those things come up and change, let the function do the work for you. Same with the URI function. Just rather than trying to concatenate that together, use that URI function. It'll put the URI together for you, and you don't have to worry about some of the pathing issues that you might run into when you concat. Hard coding environment information, this is probably most common with the reference function or not using the reference function. If you have a blob storage endpoint that you need to reference somehow in the template, I'll see a lot of storage account concatenated with blob.core.windows.net. And that does work fine. Where it won't work fine is if you start to use that template in other clouds. So if you go use on Azure Stack, Azure Government, Azure China, Azure Germany, those are going to be different URIs and it won't work there. Your template's going to break. The other thing that may happen, I don't think it's happened yet, but may happen, is we're starting to run out of storage account names. And so we may have to change that part of the domain. So even though it might work today in public Azure, it may not work tomorrow. So anything that you need to get from the environment or everything that's known to the environment, you can get with the reference function. So learn to use that and actually retrieve that information for you. Another hard coding thing is with VM sizes, SKUs, things that might affect costs or things that might be affected by policy. So for example, if you hard code a VM size in your template and that size can't be deployed because it's not available in a region, it's not available due to quota, it's not available due to capacity, it's not available due to policy, that template's going to fail. And then the user doesn't have any choice but to edit the template if they can do that to actually go ahead and continue deployment. Variables for the sake of variables, and I kind of see both sides of this. I have it up here because I've had it for a while, but I'll see a lot of templates that have a variable section, and then every variable is just the parameter that was passed in. And the thing that I think that helps with is then when you're defining a resource in your resource body, you know that everything should be a variable. You don't have to remember what was a variable and what was a parameter. The struggle I have with it is, and take the case of a VM size that we just talked about. I want to make sure that that VM size that's being used is being passed in as a parameter. And so if it's a variable down in the resource body, I have to go back up to the section, I have to go back up the stack and make sure that everything's used. So in some cases, for me, it just makes things harder to read. Duplicating code instead of copying and pasting. Remember that legacy code, the thing we talk about? You'll see a lot of old templates where, say I needed to figure out how many data disks I wanted on a VM. And so there was actually a really clever solution to this that's in the quick start repo. It was, I think it's been replaced since. But to do a nested deployment, create an array of data disks, output the number that you want, and use the take function to take just that number. I probably would have never thought of that myself. It is very clever, but it's a lot of work to actually get to something that we can now do with a copy function within ARM. And so look for things like that. For nested templates, there's the condition property, so you don't need to do nested deployments for that. So just another thing that you have. Authoring conditional dependencies. So if you have a condition property on a resource, and you have another resource that depends on that, you don't need to do anything special with the depends on statement for that. Now, nobody would know that unless we told them, because I don't know how you would know that, right? It's not very intuitive. But what will happen in that case is you want to write your template such that the resources will always be deployed. And so that template is fully evaluated, the graph is complete. And then if it never needs to be modified because of the condition, ARM will take care of that for you. And the last one on here is inline nested templates. So this is one where I just kind of have a little bit of a caution. They can be very handy, so sometimes you need to nest deployments for very specific reasons and you have to do it. You can link to a template that's stored out on the internet somewhere and point ARM to it. That will work just fine. You can also put the template inline. When you do that, you have to remember that the variables and parameters that you use in that template have a global scope. So even though the template parameter may be defined in that nested inline deployment, that's not the one that's going to get used. It's going to be the one that's at global scope. So the more sophisticated those deployments get, the more things like that you're going to run into things like that. So if you have anything meaningful that you want to do in a nested deployment, use a linked template. It'll make life easier for you. So debugging the template. And so these are some things that I do when I run through it. This has gotten much better over the last couple of years. So there's the error messages that are output from the deployment. A lot of times, probably 80% of the time, that's going to tell me what I need. And that's the place we'll all start, obviously. But I also use deployment outputs quite a bit. So I will, as I'm trying to test things and trying to figure out how to formulate an expression to get it right, I just have a template that has nothing but deployment outputs in it. And I'll just go write that expression in the output, and then I'll try and I'll keep working at it until I get it right. And that's how I do a lot of the testing of things that I need to do before I go fold them into a larger deployment. The activity logs in the portal. So in those cases where you get an error message, and that error message is not the final answer, it's not the thing that's actually helping you. The activity log will have all of the error messages and everything that actually transpired through that deployment. So you can go up there and you can see not just the one that was returned by whatever tool you were deploying with, but you can see everything that happened during that deployment. Then there's also the debug switch. This is one that if you use this switch, say PowerShell CLI, you put the debug switch on the commandlet, that's going to show you the entire REST conversation that took place between ARM and the client. And so everything that happened, everything that went over the wire, you'll see that in the debug output. If it's not in that output, then ARM doesn't know about it. That's a little extreme, but for all intents and purposes of what you'll be able to debug, that's true. The drawback of this particular case is if you didn't put the debug switch on there to begin with, now you got to go run your deployment again to put it on there, and that's why I'll use those other two options first. VM extensions, the custom script extension, if you've done any VMs, you'll know you need this. You need something that's going to configure a VM. This is usually the place that you start. There's actually a really good doc on it now. There wasn't probably 6 months ago. And it drove me nuts trying to figure out what location are all these logs in that I need to go figure out what happened when I debug this extension. And actually, I think the last one that's on here, the 0 settings file, I don't think that's in the doc yet because I went to go look for it to see if they had it, so I didn't have to put any of them in there. And I don't think that one's there yet. That one actually contains the URI of the files that were attempted to be downloaded during the provisioning of that extension. And so it might be 0 settings, it might be 1 settings, it might be 2, it depends on how many times you've run that extension on the box. But the URIs will be in there. So you can go see what it tried to download, you can kind of compare that with what you stage, then you'll hopefully figure out the problem from there. And then the last one here is Stack Overflow, MSDN docs. So I guess not so much for me, but another good source of information. So I'll answer questions on Stack Overflow. And I've actually noticed over the last couple months or so, the community is getting much better about it. So I'll go up there and find a question that's already been answered. So it's been a really good place for getting the source of help there as well. So from there, we'll go to the reuse. So that was reduce. The reuse is going to be, I'll show you in the demo that I'm going to create one virtual machine template. I'm just going to create one, and I'm going to use that for all of my virtual machine deployments. And I'll show you kind of a technique you can use to do that, so that you don't have to have all these different virtual machine templates, and then when you need to update them, you have to go figure out how am I going to update them. So the first thing here, so everything I'm going to show you, I've got a lot of code in here. We won't have time to go through it all. But what I'm going to do is, it's in Vlad's repo. So all the things that we've done from the ARM team here at Ignite is going to be in this repo, all the code samples. So if we don't get to something, you can go look at it on the airplane ride home and see what's there. Okay. Can you guys, let me bring up some code here. I want to make sure that this is sized right. Can everybody see that okay? Is that size right? Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this too much. So there's some things here. There's some links at the end of the deck. I had them in my favorites, so I was going to show them to you, but that's not all that interesting. But at the end of the deck, there's a bunch of links for all the things that we kind of use as we go through writing tooling. So you can take a look at those. The scripts. So there are a handful of scripts here. These scripts are scripts that I use to deploy. They're part of the quick starts repo that I showed at the beginning. And the idea is that you can take that script and you can deploy any sample that's in the repo. We want to try to get a standard pattern there, and it's particularly around staging artifacts. So if you've got scripts or templates or things like that that need to be staged in Azure, the scripts will do that part for you, provided the templates follow the standard pattern. And so we're trying to kind of make that a little bit more standard, make it easier for people to consume. So you can use those for that. There's a script in here that I think Grav will show if he has time about working with the create UI definition file. And so if you've worked with managed apps or you've worked with the marketplace, you provide a UI definition file. This will give you a way to test it. Simon up here in the front is the guy that wrote that a long time ago. So those are the scripts. And then walk through some of the things that we're talking about. So outputs. So this is kind of some of the things that I do with an output. So for example, here I was trying to figure out how do I begin an expression with a bracket and not have ARM treat it as an expression. You can certainly do that with a variable, and most of you would probably have figured that part out. There is a secret here that you can just put two of them together, and that's the ARM escape sequence that if the developer doesn't tell you that's the escape sequence, you won't know. But you can put two of them together and it does the same thing. And then I'll throw that all together in an expression in an output, and then I can actually see it. There's one here where I was trying to work out single quotes. So again, I could do a variable with a single quote. That makes it pretty verbose or complex expression. But if you have the right set sequence in there, that works as well. Another one here. Oh, I'm bad at math, so as I try to figure out things, I just actually do the expression and then output it. You can do JSON in a single property. So if you wanted to build a JSON object, you can actually build that through the single string property in the JSON function. You have to make sure that you're escaping things correctly, so you still have to have the quotes and all that in there. That works. I tend to do a variable when it comes to that. I'll just put the variable in and create the object there because it's easier for me to author that than it is to author it inline, but you can do that. This one here was the attempt of trying to figure out how do I get the IP address, the public IP address of an instance of a virtual machine in a scale set. This one was a little interesting, but the first thing was to start with the resource ID for the virtual machine, then get an instance of that virtual machine, and then go all the way down here and figure out where that public IP address was. And I did that with two of the tools that we actually talked, or one of the tools we talked about, and then the other one I'll show you here is one was look in Resource Explorer and find out what that property, the shape of that property looks like. And you can drill down and figure out what paths you need to put in to do that. Another way is just to use the reference function, but you can reference the full object. And so this actually will dump out the entire VMSS object and it will show you what the properties are that are available and then kind of how you reference them. And then through all that, it comes down to the IP address on this resource ID up here that I put together. Another thing here quickly is this metadata property. This works pretty much anywhere in an ARM template. So if you wanted to put a note in somewhere, a random note or a comment, rather than putting in // which is technically invalid JSON, you can use metadata. And you can put that anywhere in the template. ARM will ignore it. ARM will actually throw it out before it does any compilation, so you don't have to worry about it. Secrets. So again, 2 ways to do secrets. One of them is that MSI. So I'll show you quickly how to, where are we at? It's my storage account. Here we go. So this is a VM template, so all the other resources are in here with the NIC and the storage account and the public IP address. But to create the MSI is you just have this property, which is a system assigned MSI, which means the system is going to manage it for you. It's going to have the same lifetime as this VM resource, and as soon as that resource is done provisioning, that MSI, that identity will be available. The next step would be to give it permission to something. And so that's what this does. This is a role assignment. I'm putting the role assignment on the storage account, and I'm referencing that identity that I created in the VM. And so this is the long resource ID. All the way down here at the end is the GUID of that principal ID. So just like you would have for any principal that you would need to give access to. And then I have the contributor role on that storage account. So now that I've done that, I can go ahead within a custom script and I can leverage that identity to do whatever I want to do in that particular scenario. So all I need to do is log in -- identity. The CLI understands that that means to work with a managed service identity. So it will go out to that resource or go out to the VM in this case, get what it needs to out of that, get a token, authenticate, and then you can use your script just like you would any other scenario. So I can get the storage account key, I can create the container, I can copy the blob. And I can do that all with the identity that I created. So that's one way through the MSI. The other thing would be, so if you're working with secrets in Key Vault, this might look familiar to you. So you have this reference parameter, and that's how you reference that secret in a vault. In a parameters file, you have to hard code that resource ID and the secret name. You can't use expressions there. There's also a limit of 30 of those. You can only do that. You can only have 30 in a template today. So there's a couple things that you can do to kind of get around that 30 limit. One of them I do is I actually create an object, a secure object. And so you can think of this as all the secrets that I want to provision, and I think I have 50 or so in here. Put those into an object, and then I can put them into the vault as a string. And that's what this is actually going to do. So I have my secure object here. This is my resource where I add the secret, and I just convert it to a string before I put it into the vault. The vault can't handle a JSON object, so I'll just convert it to a string. All those characters are still there. My braces, brackets, and quotes are all still there, and then I store it as a string. When I'm ready to get it out, I reference it, and then I'll just convert it to JSON on the way out. And so this is going to give me that entire JSON object. This is going to give me a way to reference just a particular secret in that JSON object. And so that's a way where you can actually have a lot of secrets in one secret. You can really condense some of the code that you have to work with there and kind of get around those limits. Another approach that you can use, this was a case where the scenario I had was migrating secrets from one vault to another. So we've got a bunch of secrets in this vault. I want to move them all over to this other vault. I want to do it with an ARM template. There was more than 30. And so again, you run into that 30 limit. So what this is it uses a technique we call the dynamic resource ID. And there's a document on this, but I get the question a lot, so it's always good to run through. And this was a new scenario for it. So what I'll do is in this case, so I had my source vault and my destination vault. This is the name of all the secrets that are in the vault. So I have 2 here. You could have as many as you want. They don't have to be named like I think I had S1 to S50. It can be named whatever you want. This array is just your name of secrets. And then in the deployment, you can go ahead and construct the resource ID of that vault dynamically, so it doesn't have to be hard-coded. So it could be something that you could use this in multiple subscriptions by using that resource ID function instead. And then it's just pulling out the secret name out of the array. And there's a loop here that's going to go through 1 to however many secrets that I have in that. And so that's another way that you could get around the limit there. The next one, and this is getting back to our saving the planet. How many people have seen this pattern of the number of files where you have new or existing and you have a different nested template for either one? You guys seen this pattern before? Some of you have seen it. You might even used it. And this, again, you go back a year and a half. This was the common way you would do it, and some cases the only way that you would do it. And you end up with cases where now I have a public IP address defined here, I have a NIC defined here, I have parameters that I have to pass in that I don't use, because in this particular new case, I don't need the resource group parameter name. In the existing case, the same thing holds true, right? So I've got parameters I don't need because these are existing, but then I've also duplicated some code in terms of my network interface that I assign that to. So it creates a very verbose approach to doing that. And then you see that repeated through storage account, through virtual network, any resources where you had this, do I want to do new or existing from? With the new functionality, I can do all of that within one template. I don't need to do any nesting anymore. The way that I do that is kind of twofold. So there's two things that actually make this work well. One is the default parameters that we have. So as you go through the template, make sure you have default parameters that work for a particular scenario. And I do it for the new scenario because it's easiest and also because it's the most complete from a testing perspective. So if we look at the storage account parameters, whether I want a new or existing one, I'm going to default that to new. And when I have a new storage account, I need a name for it, so I'll just generate a name. I give it a storage account type for a default. And then for the resource group, and this is the part that you need for the resource ID function. If it's an existing storage account, you need that resource group name parameter. I will formulate that function call so that it's the same all of the time. So it's always going to have the resource group name parameter, but rather than telling the user to pass in that parameter, we'll just default to the resource group name. So that single function call will work in any scenario. And as we go down, we'll go down here to the variables, and you can kind of see that. Same thing with the public IP address. So I'm always going to have this resource group parameter in my resource ID function. That means it's going to work in the new or existing scenario, and I don't have to worry about which one it is, and I don't have to have a conditional variable or a different variable for each one. And in the resources themselves, you'll see very simple. Each one is going to have a condition, and if it's set to new, then it's going to be deployed. And if it's not set to new, whether it's existing or none, that means that resource is not going to be deployed. And you'll see that pattern each one. So instead of the nested deployment, instead of the nested template, I just add that condition property, and it accomplishes the same thing. And then you'll see as we use some of those things that we provision, so we'll go down here to the NIC. So the subnet ID, again, the resource group name parameter is there all the time. And then in the public IP address, I actually have another condition here that says, if this parameter does not equal none, then I'm going to add a public IP address ID. And so now that will fill out that property. And if it does equal none, then I'm going to do this handy JSON null. And what that does is that actually removes the entire property from the template when ARM compiles it. It doesn't set that property to null, it removes it. So you don't have to worry about, can this property handle a null value, because ARM doesn't even send it to the resource provider at that point. And so that's very handy for doing a lot of the conditional behavior and some of the options that you might want to build into your template. So see, here's another example. So in the Linux configuration, if I want to do password or SSH auth, SSH key, so take a look at this. So here's my variable that I defined. And in this case, I'll disable password auth if SSH key is going to be used. But in my authoring, I can actually leave this in here because ARM will handle the scenario of it's disabled, I can still add a password, it's disabled, it's not going to do anything. And if I need it, then this is going to be added in my Linux configuration. And in this particular case, I've actually used the same parameter for a password or key, because in my case, I'm not going to allow both. It's one or the other. So if you have a password, that parameter actually contains the password. If you have SSH key, it's going to contain the key. Doesn't really matter. You can have two parameters, and you can have one of them be empty and not required. It's really kind of personal choice at that, but that's one of the things that you can do. So from there, now let's go look at the one VM template for them all. So we'll close this. So I have a scenario where I want to write a VM template such that I want that template to work for anything that I'm going to do in my organization or anything that I want my customers to be able to do. So I'm going to take a lot of those techniques that we just used, default parameters. I'm going to have a lot of parameters in this template, probably more than I would want otherwise. But remember, this is a template that I'm not going to have people consume and play with. This is a template that I'm going to secure away somewhere. It's not going to be changed very often, and it's meant to do any scenario that I can think of. So it's going to be a bit more code than you'll see in the typical template. But you'll still have things like the default values, all that's going to be there. The newer existing pattern is still going to be there. I'm starting to add allowed values here now because I want to make sure that this thing is very robust. It's going to check errors. It's going to enforce things. If people are going to be calling it and they don't really have a good familiarity with the template, I want to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to help the deployment. Even to go so far down here, down towards the end. So this VM template is going to allow me to do a couple different scenarios. So for example, I could put my VM in availability zones, or I could put my VM in an availability set. I can do one of those two things. I can't do both of those things. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that the parameters that are passed into the template don't attempt to do that. So what I built is this parameter down here, which is doing nothing other than helping me validate the template. And what it's going to do is it looks at the zones parameter and sees, is it not empty? And then it looks at the availability set name parameter. Both of those things trigger what's going to happen in this template, and is it not empty? And if both of those are not empty, then I'm going to set this default value to false. Because false is not in the allowed values for this parameter, that's going to fail validation. So as soon as you try to deploy that template, it's going to come back immediately and tell you that that template's not valid. It's not going to go deploy half of the resources, get to the VM, and then tell you that it's not valid. It's going to tell you right away. And similarly here, if I'm trying to do zones and I'm trying to do a public IP address SKU that is not standard, so for example, you chose basic, those two things are not compatible. So I want to check that right away, and I want to fail it right away. And so that's what I can do with those parameters. A couple other things that you'll see in this template. So I have, actually we'll go up here real quick to the OS. So single VM template, I want to do different OSs in my organization. So it might be Windows, might be Linux. I've got 3 that I've decided to support in this one. And the way that the user can do that is just specify, I think it's the SKU and the image or the SKU and the plan that are concatenated together, but it's in the allowed values. So if you've got an experience that's going through allowed values, it'll let them pick. And then in the variable section here, I just have the full reference defined. So the user doesn't have to define that. They don't have to come up with all of those values on their own. I don't have to worry about those values not working together if they specified a couple things that don't work together. This is tested with my template. I know that it works, and so I can actually pick that up from a variable when I go specify my image reference. There's a couple things in here where I'm checking whether it's Windows or Linux, because some of the behavioral will be different in those cases. Storage account, whether or not that's provisioned. Whether or not I enable boot diagnostics is whether or not somebody has given me a storage account. So I've kind of decided some patterns here that I can use to change some of the behavior. And so if we look down, we'll go take a look at the VM because that's going to be, again, the most interesting one. Although there's a talking point here, and just to kind of give you some things to think about. So I've added a network security group in this template, which means every VM that's provisioned is going to have a network security group. It's going to allow remote access. Whether it's Windows or Linux, there's the option there. This may be a case where this template, for example, does not deploy a virtual network because you're just deploying a VM. So you're probably deploying that VM into an existing virtual network. That VM might also have existing security groups. So what I would really want to do here is probably conditionalize that the way that I've done everything else. So a new existing none type of pattern to say whether or not I want to provision an NSG because it may be already covered somewhere. And then in the VM itself, you'll see some of the other things that we added. So there's zones, and kind of again using that same technique. If the zones were passed in as a parameter, if that was not the default value, then I'm going to add it here, and I can add whatever availability zone was requested. It's actually an array property in ARM in the ARM template language, so I convert that to an array, even though for VMs it's only one. And then also here's the null if it's not needed. Similarly with the availability set, same type of logic that I'm going to use. And I can use that pattern over and over and over again to allow options to be configured on this VM. You'll see it with the Windows and Linux configuration, same type of thing. I think as I was running through this, I actually have a bug here. This property should also have this check in it, because I would only want to add that if it wasn't a Windows VM. And then here's an example of the copy property, or a way to copy things. So if you remember up at the top, I think, so we can go up and take a look at it. Here's my data disks. So by default, I'm going to put a couple data disks on this. They're going to be 128 gig in size. I can change that default to whatever I want. But what's going to happen then is, based on the size of that array, I'm going to provision that number of data disks, and then I'm also going to provision that size of data disks. So I'm kind of using that parameter for two things as I go through that copy loop. That's there. Here's the image reference. So we had that image reference, which is just, am I Ubuntu, am I Windows? And then I can just look up that in that variable what the entire image reference object should look like. And then there's a couple other things here that I kind of left as an exercise for the reader. But one of the other things I might want to do if I really had kind of a robust single VM template, I can actually have more than one network interface on a VM. I can have multiple. I can have primary, and I can have a couple secondary network interfaces. So the way that I would likely do that in my template, if I wanted to author that, is I would have a number of NICs that I would pass into that template. And if it was more than one, I would put a copy loop here. The very first one would be the primary NIC, and then for every other one greater than one, it would be false. That primary property would be set to false. So a couple other things to think about with that. What else here? So the custom script output. So this is just kind of another, we didn't talk about this in the slides, but this is another technique that has come in handy. So the scenario that I had was, oh, actually, you know what? I forgot to show you guys how I actually consume that template. Let's look at that real quick. So this is the template that consumes the VM template that's going to create a VM from it. So I create a virtual network here because, again, you're probably in a virtual network. So I just created that for the completeness of the template. And now that I've created that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to provision a single VM from that template. And so the thing that I need to give it is username and password. Those are two things that I'm not going to default. And what virtual network do I want to put that VM into? And that's all that I need to supply for that VM to be provisioned. That's a very simple example. I'm using a lot of the defaults. That works well. In the second case, I actually want 10 VMs. So I have a copy loop that's going to provision 10 of those VMs. They're very similar. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put them in zones. And what I do is I take the first one, put it in zone 1, second in zone 2, third in zone 3, fourth one goes back into zone 1, fifth one goes into zone 2. So I'm spreading all those VMs across zones as I go through that copy loop to make sure that those are highly available. Networking parameters are the same, but it just kind of gives you another idea. And so I could go through here and I could specify another OS. If I wanted to do a different OS on this, I could do availability set instead of availability zones. Just all of those default parameters that were there, if I want to override them and set something differently, I can do that when I actually invoke that template. So the next one, this is a scenario I had where, so the question that originally came up from somebody was, how do I'm doing a deployment, how do I actually leverage some compute during that deployment? I need to go grab a file, I need to run compute on that, I need to do something with that file, and then I want the deployment to continue based on the information that was in that file. And so the solution that we came up with was to use a custom script extension, call that script extension twice. Now this was a VM that he already had in the deployment, so it wasn't provisioning a VM just for that purpose, which I wouldn't recommend. In this case, it was a jump box. So set up the jump box and first run that script to go do that compute. When you're done with that compute, then output that value or output that information into ARM so that the next step in the deployment can consume that. And so what that looked like was in the VM side. Actually, well, let's look at the custom script extension side. So this is a custom script extension. It just runs the script. There's nothing special with that. But the output of that is an object, which is what is the instance view of that custom script extension? What's everything that we know about that extension? And so this is a pretty long example, and I think in this case too, I think I'm doing a Windows Linux switch because they're different. But essentially, this is the property you want, and that's going to be a JSON object that's going to have all the information that you need to continue the deployment. So if I look at the script that I wrote, where's our script? What I did in the standard out was I delimited the output that I cared about between two things that I thought were going to be unusual. And then in the next part of the deployment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to parse that data, parse that output for that data, and then I'll get just the information that I need. So I output the JSON object, and then when I go consume it again, if this is the second one, so this is my second extension run, I'm looking at the output. So here's my first extension 1 reference, here's my output, etc., etc. I go down into the JSON object and get the message, and then create an array based on that string that I wrote, and then just pull the first element back from the array, because I know that's the data that I want. So then I'm taking that data and I'm passing it into the next run of the extension, and now I can continue the deployment with information that I discovered from that. So it's a technique where you can use, you can run the custom script extension twice. You'll give it the same name because you can't have two of them, but run it in a nested deployment, do your processing, go back to your deployment, do whatever you want, get the processing, and go back. And so that's another way that you can leverage that. Next we have subscription level deployment. So how many people know about subscription level deployments? This is new, but we've been talking about it quite a bit. Okay, so not very many. So everything that you do in a template today is that resource group scope. You create a resource group, you put a bunch of resources in it. That's the extent of the scope that you can work with in templates. We now have the ability to do deployments at subscription scope, which means anything that is a subscription level resource you can deploy in a template through deploying that template at subscription scope. So for example, this template, I'm going to actually create a resource group. So I can now create a resource group through a template. The next thing that I'm going to do is put a lock on that resource group, and then I'm going to give somebody access to that resource group. And so this is kind of setting up, hey, I don't want to give somebody access to a subscription, I'll give them access to a resource group. I can use this template over and over to do that. I could actually continue this within the subscription level deployment and deploy to that resource group if I wanted to add another deployment to it. So I could complete the entire cycle. I could populate it with resources if I wanted to. This was just a simple example of how to set that framework up so that you can use it later on. You can also create role definitions. So that's now possible in a template. Before you could only do role assignments. Role definitions happen at subscription scope, so now you can do that. And then this is just a subscription level role assignment. So all of that's there. So I'm going through this kind of fast. All this stuff, remember, all of this stuff will be in the repo. So you guys can go and take a look at it whenever you have time. Certainly if you see anything in there that you have questions on, let us know. A couple other things that are in here, API profiles. So this is something that is really probably more applicable to something like Azure Stack, and that's the use case that they were created for. But when we're talking about API versions and managing API versions, one of the features that actually is available in ARM, and this works in public ARM, is you can use this property called the API profile. And when you specify that, you don't have to put an API version on the resources themselves. And so you see none of these have that. Because ARM will go through that API profile, it'll pick out the version in that API profile, and it'll populate it for you. It's very handy for something when you're doing, like if you're doing an Azure Stack and you're doing a public Azure template and you want it to be the same, works perfect for that. If you're only, say, in public Azure, probably not as suited for it, because what it'll do is it gives you a set of API versions that are a little bit older, so it's not going to give you the latest. And there is no profile that's the latest because, again, you want to make sure you know what API version you're working with. That's one technique. That, okay. This example is, so I called this constants because what I originally came up with was, the request was there are a handful of things that I want to do where I want to have these global variables in ARM. Like I know these values are going to be static, they're going to be shared throughout different templates. I don't want to put a nested template in every deployment to reference those. So what I did was I created a resource group. I deployed some outputs to that resource group. And those outputs have the names of the global variables that I want to access. And then I can reference those in other deployments by just referencing the output on that resource group. And so that's one way that you can actually do something where I want to share values across, but I don't want to build it into any template. Another way that I do that is by using Key Vault. And so this can be a case where it doesn't have to be secret. I can put those values into Key Vault and I can reference them and I can share them across deployments by just referencing that Key Vault. Kind of the difference between, if you're not doing secrets, they don't need to be secure. Key Vault's not free. It's not terribly expensive, but it's not free. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. And then one of the things that was happening in this particular case was, let's see if I can find the full sample here. Yeah, I think this was the sample. This kind of combines a couple of things that we talked about. So the use case was, I have the location. I want to truncate the location to something that's short enough that I don't have to worry about it running over. But it has to be unique. So I can't just truncate the string. I actually have to come up with that code myself. And so you'll see here, this is how all of those things were evaluated. So West-US is fine, but when you got into some of the longer ones, we needed to truncate those. So this scenario, what it does is it takes that object, it puts it into a secret in Key Vault, and then actually using the location from the vault, you'll see that vault reference. Give me that location codes object. And then when I want to use it, I can see this is one way to reference it. So this was one of the ways it was referenced. So it's just pulling that thing back into an object. So it puts the JSON function back on there, references that value, and then looks up the location code and pulls the property from it. And so that was a way where I could actually do that conversion, and I do it in a global way so that I don't have to build it into every template. So there's a couple things like that. So I think that's all that I have time for. There's a couple other things on here. Again, feel free to take a look at them. Go ahead and shoot me any questions if you have any questions. I will tell you that they're bug-free, and if they're not bug-free, it's because I left an exercise for the class to go find the bugs in my samples. Feel free to submit the pull request. So with that, I will hand it over to Gaurav, and he's going to talk about managed applications.
Well, Brian, I must say that was a hell lot of tips and tricks. I was like sitting there and waving at him, hey, come back, give me my turn. But yeah, that was an awesome amount of information. But the award goes to you guys. I mean, my head was spinning looking at so much JSON over there, but not one person left the room. So, a round of applause for Brian and yourself. Okay, cool. So now, sorry, clicker. So now that you have spent so much time understanding how to build this template, what patterns to use, the patterns that Brian shared with you, leveraging those templates, applying them in your template. Now that you have spent so much time into all those, multiple hours have been spent, not hours, probably days have been spent into orchestrating these templates. I personally wouldn't want to keep it to myself and enjoy them by myself. I would probably want to, think about sharing them with others. Not always do you spend hours and days learning how to bake a cake, then trying it out at your home for it to fail for the first time because it got burned, or the next time it turned out to be a rock where no one can eat it. So it's a process where eventually got a beautiful cake, delicious cake. Do I want to eat it by myself, or do I want to share it with everybody so that they can enjoy it? So same thing here in the sense that, after spending so much time with these templates, what are the ways for me to now package this template and make it available, more readily available to other people, either within my organization or more broadly across different organizations through the Azure Marketplace? So most typically when new companies, folks, enterprises are going towards adopting cloud, right? They don't have any guardrails in terms of how people in that company adopt cloud. They can directly, what I mean is they directly go to cloud, they get an Azure subscription and start creating resources. Is that a good thing? Probably not. As they grow more mature in their learning about cloud, they start putting these guardrails. So they start putting RBAC, they start putting policies, they start putting auditing so that they can better restrict how people in that organization are consuming cloud. That's great, that's awesome, right? It gives you some kind of control over what people can and cannot do, and that lets you control the cost. But is that good enough? At the end, the consumers or the employees in the organization are still out in the wild trying to figure out what they can use, what they cannot use, what is the best thing for them to use, what applications are allowed. When they're creating a VM, what size is needed for my application? I don't know. Do I need to know? This is where Service Catalog comes in, which lets you create a catalog of applications or services, and it is an approved set of applications and services that now you can share with people in your organization. And these could be like very simple virtual machines, single virtual machines, a Linux virtual machine, a database server, a dev test environment for your developers with all the required tools installed, all the CI/CD pipeline, all the tools that you're using installed on that. Or it could be much more complicated application, right, that you want to share. So everything you can put in this catalog, and then the consumption of Azure goes through this catalog. They're not directly creating a VM, but whatever is available to them through this catalog, they are only able to create those. The good part about that is they did not have to create these themselves. Someone else created it for them and made it available to them. And the best part is they don't even have to manage or maintain them. When they run into issues, they call you. They call the central IT team who built these templates for them or who made them available. So what are the benefits of a service catalog or a managed application? It centralizes distribution. It channels all the consumption of Azure through a gateway that you have created, and everything is getting consumed through that. You can RBAC it so that no one can go outside of that gateway and create a virtual machine. They have to go through the central catalog. So you're centralizing the distribution. We talked about some of the things that enterprises do when they want to govern how cloud gets consumed in terms of policies and RBACs and whatnot. This is another handle on you controlling what they can create. So it lets you better govern. It lets you organize the applications in a way that it makes it much more meaningful to the end consumer. It may be based on business units. It may be based on the category of app. So it lets you organize these applications and services better. For the end consumer, it is very easy for now for these people to discover them and start consuming them. They're not lost in the wild of Azure portal or the marketplace trying to figure out which solution do I need to deploy for my scenario out of the 10 that are available for me. So it becomes really easy for them when they have this approved set of applications and services to choose from. It gives them a higher quality of service because someone else is managing it for them. Because the management has been offloaded to this publisher or this enterprise IT or this some other party involved here, a higher cost can be offered for these applications. And how you get that capability is, if you see in the picture here, the publisher or the creator of this application published this package. On the very right side is the consumer who deployed the application using his subscription. There are two resource groups at play here. One is an application resource group, which contains an application which ties in all the components that are needed for that application. And then there is this managed resource group. The managed resource group contains all the actual resources that got deployed as part of that application. It could be a SQL server, a virtual machine, whatever resources were needed for that application to function got deployed. So the consumer has very limited access on that managed resource group. He can only read the resources that were deployed, but he cannot say, for example, delete it, or he cannot update any resource that was part of that application. And hence, on the other hand, the publisher has full access to the managed resource group, and the publisher can update the application, can make changes to the application as and when it is needed. So that's how the publisher, offer a higher QoS to this particular application. Now, there might be consumers who are not happy with this model, who are not happy giving the publisher or some third party full standing access to this application which is deployed in their tenant, in their subscription. So what is also enabled in the platform is a JIT-based access model in which the publisher needs to request access, the consumer needs to approve that access, and then the publisher will have access over that application for the period of time that the consumer determined. So that lets the consumer again in control of what and when the publisher is going to access. It is not more of a scenario in the case where these applications are getting deployed in the same tenant, by the same organization, but there is another flavor of this application which we'll talk about on the next slide, on which the scenario becomes much more powerful and capable. So there are two flavors of managed applications. One is called Service Catalog, which is really meant for your consumption in the same organization. The enterprise IT or a system integrator or some MSP might have created that for you and managing it for you. And the publishing pipeline is through the Azure portal in this case. The reason why that right-hand side part is hidden is because that's the flow for which we'll use in the next slide. But the key point I want to convey is the same package can be either published to the enterprise catalog or it could be published to the marketplace for it to be consumed by everybody. So this is the second flavor of managed applications, wherein you have this cake and you want to sell this cake and anybody can buy this cake. And so this is where you publish this application to the Azure Marketplace. Anybody can come into the marketplace and consume that, deploy that application. But the part about management still holds true, wherein a publisher who is another company, another tenant, can still manage it for you in your tenant. So who's doing the management in this case? It could be the ISV who created this application or any MSP who's managing the cloud consumption or Azure for the third party. Now, how it ties into what we learned earlier with what Brian was talking about, how do you construct these templates and how do you use these good patterns? How do you leverage those and start from there and create a managed application? Well, it's very simple. You take the same template that you have created. That does not need to change. You've already spent a lot of effort. You don't need to spend any more. Take the same template, add another file, which is called the create UI definition file. And this is the file which controls what input you need for your application, for your template, the parameters that you have defined, how you want to take input for those through a UX way. So you could have a text box for a username, or a secure string for a password, or a drop-down for a location. All those things you can really control through this file. You package this file up. You add some configuration on top of it. This configuration really tells who will have access to manage this application when the end customer deploys this. So what principle and what role is needed. By role, it is an Azure AD role definition, which determines what permissions come as part of that. It could be an owner role, a contributor role, or any of the custom roles that are provided through Azure AD. So you provide that configuration, and you tell on the consumer side, what can the consumer do after he has installed the application? Do I want to lock that application so that I can offer better QoS? And when I lock it, the consumer only has read access to it? Or do I want to have an unlocked version of it so that the consumer can do whatever they want to do? Right? So you define that config, and boom, there you go. You publish it, and I'll just show you how you publish it. You have your app ready, available either through the service catalog to your enterprise or to the marketplace. So switching to the demo, and my machine has slept. Okay, so let's see how we can first take this package, this template that we have created, and deploy it to the catalog. So I go to create a resource, and I search for let's try that. if it doesn't work. Let's go here and just jump right to the shortcut. Okay. So I come here, Service Catalog Managed Application Definition, and I want to create an application definition which I want to share with my company. So I give it a name. Some description. And then the resource group I want to deploy this to. So let's create a new resource group. And then the package file. So this package file is the same package file that we saw earlier on the slide, where it contains two files that I've already uploaded on the storage account, and I will just reference it from there. And it contains the main template file and the create UI definition file. And you can do the same thing through PowerShell or CLI, and I will quickly show you the script on how that is done. But you can either use Portal or any of the clients that are available. You can publish these applications from there. So package file done. Lock level is where I want to lock this application for end consumers. I want to lock it because I want to provide higher quals. This is the authorization section where I'm telling who is going to manage this app and what permissions do they have on the app when the consumer deploys it. So I'll make myself as the owner. You can add any user group, any service principal application here. And once that is done, I click create. This will go ahead and provision the application definition. Once that is provisioned, I come here and I want to consume it as a customer. So I go to the portal, I come here, okay, I want to create an instance of that application now that have been shared with me. And here if that has not been published already, I will select one of the ones that I published earlier. And this is the UI that you see that I provided in that other create UI definition file. So it needs basic inputs, the resource group. Let's create a new resource group. And then the inputs that are needed for creating my VM. You provide the prefix, and this is where you are removing the complexity of the app from the consumer. The things that you don't want them to set or change, you have not even provided that option, or you have provided smart defaults, like the VM size. I don't want them to create extra large VMs, so I've only put the sizes available for them that I want them to create. Public IP, I always want to create them a new public IP. And there you go. This app will deploy in my subscription, and the validation has succeeded because I have made sure the template was good quality. You can pretty much do the same thing by going to the script. I have written a script and it is in the same location that Brian earlier shared. But creating of this definition file, which you want to share it with other people, can be done automated through a script where you just provide the file names. It will zip it up, upload it to the storage account, and reference it from there and create this application definition that you can now publish and share with other people. Similarly, when you want to create instances of it, you can do the same thing. So jumping back to the deck. Was it 4? Was it 3, 4? Was it on 3 or 4? 5? Okay, there you go. Cool. So we went through the demo. So these are some reference documentation that you will need, that we talked about in the entire session across the template world, across managed applications, the create UI definition docs on how you want to create that create UI definition file that is used in the managed application. All these docs are referenced here as part of the deck. You will have that. Please take the survey. We love your feedback on this. As Brian said earlier, add tips that we have missed. And if you have any other feedback, email us. We would love to hear feedback on both managed applications and templates. If you're interested in managed applications, reach out to us. And yeah, evaluate the session. And we are here for questions.